Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about CEOs. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, hi Frederick, what questions should I ask my CEO? I am a software developer intern and I am going to have a meeting with him. Well, this is the CEO of your company, and in the average company, that would make this the most important person in your company. Well, one of at the very least. It's the big honcho, the biggest hippo that you have, if I'm not mistaken. And so the first thing you need to understand, my friend, is that this is just a person. And I know that sounds easy to say, maybe harder to feel and sense, especially since the dynamics between you might be a little bit. I mean, I don't know how big the company is. If it's the CEO of one of my old companies we were talking about, this is a person who makes millions and millions and millions and millions and millions and millions and millions. And when I was an intern, or like when I was a junior software developer, that makes me, like, if you look at the chart, I'm as far down as possible from that guy that I could possibly be. Like, I'm right above maybe the cleaning staff. I don't know. Actually, I'm at the same level because they don't answer to me. And in a very small company, it just might be the guy who's sitting next to you when I used to work in a startup. But the first thing is for you to understand that you're just having a conversation with another person. And one of the most important and valuable skills that you can master as, well, not just as a software developer, because I don't think this is a software, it's just something that I've always found to be true, and that is simply to understand the nature of the person that you are talking to and understand how to speak their language. What I mean by that is not necessarily empathy. I'm not talking about relating to people per se, because you should. In many cases, I don't think it's. Sometimes it works. I mean, it is, empathy is a good thing, but sometimes it gets a little bit. If you overestimate your ability to relate to people, you start. If an extreme example would be, imagine a I don't know, a white person relating to the trying to relate, or trying to say that, yeah, I know exactly how it feels to be a slave, when they have a conversation with someone who comes from a nationality that has actually fairly, say if we're talking about African Americans or something like that. That is something where it almost gets to the point of where that is offensive. You're trying to relate, you're trying to sympathize, but it's such a sensitive topic. It's such a it becomes bad if you try to do it that way. And it's the same thing with me. When I have people who try to relate to me, or they're sort of IT, or they're sort of like me, and it's sort of like they don't speak the same language. And so instead of trying to pretend that you are something that you're not, try to be yourself, but understand the other person's language. So your CEO, for example, your CEO is a business person usually. It is a person who is not technical. It's not the sort of person who's going to have a lot of thoughts and opinions, most likely, on the code or anything like that. But it is a person who probably cares about the company, because that is primarily the sort of things that the CEO is going to deal with. And so if I were you, I would try to figure out, from if I was the CEO, what sort of questions would flatter me a lot to answer when I'm dealing with an intern. As an example, you could ask things like, how long have you been the CEO, and could you tell me a little bit about the company and sort of how it got started, for example? They can probably tell you a lot about that stuff. And then questions such as, for example, what would you say are, what is the most difficult part about your job? Or you could ask things such as, could you tell me what would you say are the biggest challenges we have right now, and what would you say are our biggest strengths? These are almost, I would almost go as far as to say that's almost an interviewing sort of question. But the reason why I'm phrasing it this way is because I hope that you sort of latch on to the red thread here. I'm asking questions, open questions, about the person's experience. and they are relevant to the sort of work and the sort of areas that this person is interested in. It's sort of like, I mean, if you're having a conversation about with someone in like at a party or something, you're doing small talk, if you will. Usually the safest bet that what is it called? It's the Ford principle. I can never remember all the topics, but it's like dreams, recreation, family, or occupation, or something like that. Yeah, so you have these different very sociable areas where if you ask people about it, every single person has a story to tell about that sort of stuff. And if you want to make it a little, as I said, if you want to make it a little bit more tailored and a little bit more personal to this individual, try to identify the sort of challenges and the sort of stuff that this person has a stake in and probably has opinions about, and ask them about those opinions. And as I said, as with at any party, asking somebody about their hobbies, well, it might be the most awkward thing in the world. It does work to a certain degree. I'm not much for small talk, but it is a proven method of doing it, and I think that you can apply. I would suggest to you that you apply the same thing with the CEO. If incidentally, it's the same thing I do when I talk with interviewees, when I interview software developers, sometimes, or even managers. In many cases, I find that if I'm dealing with, say, a manager or something like that, and I hear very quickly that the person isn't all that strong in their technical skills, well, then I don't have to go so technical with them. I can ask more open-ended questions where they can feel comfortable expressing themselves, and that fact that they are enjoying expressing an answer or something like that to the question that you just asked means that they are going to most likely going to have a healthy and fun conversation with you, because people love to talk about themselves, or they like to share their thoughts to someone who is genuinely interested. So if you ask questions like this that are relevant and are actually very interesting to answer and share your thoughts, and sharing the CEO will probably love sharing his or her thoughts on these sorts of topics. And if you then listen really attentively, and maybe you follow up with a few questions and you try to relate in your own little humble way, I think that they will be flattered. Usually that is the effect that I see when you actually, as I said, when you speak the language of the other person, you understand who you're dealing with, you try to create facilitate a conversation that they will enjoy having with you, and then you attentively listen and retain the information that they are telling you. That usually almost always gives a positive impression. So what I want you to take away from this is that if you're an intern and you're going to talk to your CEO, which is usually the most powerful person in your company, just remember that this is just a person. They're not out to get you. It's just a conversation with another person. Guys, I've talked to people that are, as I said, I've been in conversations like that with people who are like so high up the food chain that we're talking about they run like everything and everyone that I ever talked to, and people I don't even know about. Like there's like at least 5 people between me and them who could fire me if they needed to. And it's still just a person. I promise you it's just a person. And so when you're dealing with a person like that, just apply, as I said, the best, in my opinion, way of having a conversation with anybody who you don't really know all that well. It doesn't even have to be anybody you don't even know that well. It's a perfect way, I think, to always have a conversation. You can look up Ford if you want to, if you want to increase your small talk skills at parties and things like that. But the essence of it is to try to understand who you're dealing with. Who is this person? What type of individual is it? What type of interests do they have? What type of things will they probably have thoughts on and opinions about? And then ask questions that are relevant. And then show genuine interest in the answer. And I promise you, if you ask your CEO how the company got started, that's a classic sort of simple thing. But if you then ask them about the sort of issues, like what do they find difficult about their job, or what challenges does the company have, and what can we do to solve that? What do they think we're going to do to solve that? These are questions that they probably would love answering for you. So that's what I would do at the very least if I were you. Have a great day.